The morning of the 11th of November, 1940. A small airfield near Ursel, Belgium. The sky is gray. The temperature is dropping below freezing. Sergente pilota, unquote. Pietro Salvadori, a 23-year-old Italian fighter pilot, pulls on his leather jacket. It's an open cockpit aircraft he's climbing into, no canopy, no protection from the wind. The plane is a Fiat CR-42 Falco, a biplane. In 1940, when every modern fighter is a sleek, enclosed monoplane with 8 gun ports and armor plating, Italy's Air Force is sending a biplane to escort bombers against the RAF. His name is Pietro Salvadori, and he is about to learn why Mussolini's gamble to prove Italy could fight will fail in the most painful way possible. The story doesn't begin in Belgium. It begins in June 1940, when Mussolini declared war on Britain and France. The Regia Aeronautica, Italy's Air Force, had 272 CR-42 Falcos on strength. The aircraft was nimble. The aircraft could turn tighter than any monoplane fighter in the world. It was the last biplane fighter in production, and it was already obsolete. But Italy's leader didn't see it that way. He saw it as proof that Italy belonged in the air war alongside Hitler's Luftwaffe. Pride, political prestige, national honor. These are the currencies Mussolini trades in, and they are all he has. By September 1940, the Corpo Aereo Italiano, the Italian Air Corps, was being assembled. 50 CR-42 Falcos, 48 Fiat G50 Freccia interceptors, support aircraft. All of them were being sent to Belgium to assist the Luftwaffe in crushing the RAF. The Luftwaffe didn't want them. German pilots found it nearly impossible to keep formation with biplanes that flew 50 kilometers per hour slower. But Hitler couldn't refuse Mussolini. Politics and pride. Again, on the 6th of October, 1940, 50 CR-42s and their pilots took off from northern Italy. They flew north through Germany and into Belgium. The units assigned were the 85th and 95th Squadrons of the 18th Fighter Group. They were based at Ursel and Maldegem, 2 airfields just a few kilometers apart. The pilots were a mix of experienced men and new ones. Some had flown combatant North Africa and Greece. Others had never heard a live bullet fired at them. They were about to. The Corpo Aereo Italiano began flying missions on the 24th of October, 1940. Night raids at first. The CR-42's lack of speed and modern armament made daylight combat suicide, so they tried dropping bombs in darkness. Harwich, Felixstowe, small towns along the English coast. The RAF barely bothered shooting back. The CR-42 was so slow that it didn't need to be fast to escape, just distant. For 2 weeks, the Italians bombed, flew home, and saw no Spitfires. This is where the underestimation takes root. The Italian pilots began to believe they could do this. Months of operating unmolested by the British. No losses. The aircraft handled beautifully in a turn. The open cockpit felt alive, raw. The pilots started to think that maybe, just maybe, Italian pilots could match the British. That the biplane wasn't the dinosaur everyone said it was. Then came the 25th of October. Word came down from the Luftwaffe. The Corpo Aereo Italiano would now conduct daylight raids, escorting bombers, fighting alongside the Bf-1, hundreds and nines, flying where the RAF could see them, where the RAF could fight them. The pilots knew what this meant. In the debriefs and the bars, they began calculating. A. Spitfire could do 460 kilometers per hour. A CR-42 could do 400, Preece, and 40. The Falco was faster in a turn, but a Spitfire could simply climb, wait, dive, and kill. The math was brutal and obvious, but orders are orders. National pride was on the post line. The first daylight engagement came on the 29th of October. A formation of CR-42S was jumped by hurricanes. The Italian pilots didn't expect it. They were flying in loose formation, tired, cold. The hurricanes came from above, and 3 CR-42S went down. The pilots were killed or captured. The others flew for home, flying the entire width of the English Channel at full throttle, their open cockpits freezing, their engines screaming. That night, the survivor reports filtered back to headquarters. The hurricanes came too fast. The CR-42 couldn't climb with them. The guns on the Biplane 2 Breda machine, guns firing 12.7mm rounds, barely scratched them. One pilot reported seeing his rounds hit a hurricane, watching the tracer rounds go right through. The fuselage and the British fighter kept flying as if nothing was happening. But the Corpo Aereo Italiano was not ordered to retreat. It was ordered to prove Italian courage. On the 4th of November, another daylight raid, another fight, 2 more. CR-42S were lost. The pattern was setting in. Every time the bombers went out in daylight, some of the escort didn't come back. The pilots whispered about it. The replacement aircraft kept arriving. The replacement pilots kept arriving, but no one was getting good at killing Spitfires. Then came the 11th of November, 1940. The biggest raid yet. 10 Fiat BR, 20 Cicogna bombers, 40 Fiat CR-4, 2 Falcos. The target was Harwich, an important British port. The operation was going to prove that Italy could conduct a major daylight bombing campaign, that the Italian Air Force was a force to be reckoned with. That Mussolini's gamble had paid off. Salvadori was assigned to the raid. He climbed into the CR-42, serial number MM5, 1701. The aircraft had seen some action, but it was still mechanically sound. At 1200 hours, he took off. 49 other pilots took off with him. Below them, the 10 bombers climbed through the clouds. Over the English Channel, something went wrong. Salvadori's engine started to overheat. A broken oil pipe. The gauge was rising. The engine was losing pressure. He was alone, over open water, with a failing engine. He had to make a decision, turn back and land in Belgium, or push forward and hope he could make it to Harwich and back. He pushed forward. By the time the formation reached Harwich, the sky was chaos. RAF. Hurricanes and Spitfires were already climbing. The bombers dropped their loads and turned for home. The CR-42S formed up to cover the retreat. Salvadori's engine was barely hanging on. The cockpit was freezing. His fingers were numb on the stick. A Spitfire appeared, then another, then a third. The CR-42 pilots scattered, each trying to find an escape angle, a cloud to hide in, a turn that their opponents couldn't match. Salvadori's engine was dying. He couldn't climb. He couldn't dive fast. All he could do was turn. The Spitfires were on him. One came from high and to his right. The other was circling below, waiting for him to commit to a maneuver. Salvadori knew he was dead. 23 years old, over the Kent coast of southern England, with an engine that wouldn't climb and guns that wouldn't shoot straight. He had done what he was asked to do. He had shown courage. It was not enough. Then something happened. Whether by skill or by luck, history gives both credit to Salvadori. He turned so tightly that the Spitfires couldn't follow. The biplane, I come to, I too. That ridiculous, obsolete biplane outturned two modern fighters. He broke free. With a 4-1 dying engine, he limped westward toward the English Channel. The Spitfires let him go. It wasn't worth burning fuel on a cripple. Salvadori flew across the water, barely above the waves, the engine coughing and sputtering. The French coast appeared. He nursed the aircraft inland, looking for a place to land. The countryside was empty. Fields, farmland. At a place called Orfordness, the engine failed. He put the CR 42 down on its belly. The aircraft skidded across the field, kicking up dust. It came to a stop. Salvadori climbed out of the cockpit, unstrapped himself, and jumped down to the soft earth. He was alive. He was in France. He was captured within the hour by local French forces, but he was alive. That, in the end, was the real story of the Fiat CR-42 Falco in the Battle of Britain. Not a victory, not even a meaningful tactical contribution, just survival. A handful of pilots, flying machines they knew were inadequate, trying to do what they were ordered to do, and coming away with the simple fact of being alive. By the end of the day, on the 11th of November, 3 CR-42s failed to return. The S bombers dropped their loads on Harwich. The port suffered some damage. British records show minimal casualties. The Hurricanes and Spitfires suffered minor damage. 1 British pilot was damaged. No major losses on the RAF side. Butine the aftermath. Something became clear. The Corpo Aereo Italiano's experimenten, daylight bombing, was a failure. The Italian Air Force couldn't compete with the RAF in a stand-up fight. The CR-42, for all its maneuverability, couldn't climb fast enough, couldn't turn fast enough, couldn't outrun opponents, and its guns were inadequate. A skilled pilot in a CR-42 could survive, could do damage, but winning? That was beyond the aircraft. After the 11th of November, the Corpo Aereo Italiano was pulled back to night. Operations. The daylight raids stopped. Italian pilots continued to fly. Butine, darkness, where speed didn't matter as much, where you could navigate by landmarks and bomb by instinct. The flying stopped being about proving Italy could win. It became about surviving until you could go home. By January 1941, the Corpo Aereo Italiano was recalled to Italy. The experiment was over. Mussolini's gamble had failed. 50 CR-42 Falcos had been sent to prove Italian courage. A handful had been lost. The rest returned home, their pilots, decorated for their sacrifice. But everyone understood the truth. The biplane was dead. In quote, the age of open cockpit, fabric-covered fighters was finished. The future belonged to the monoplanes, to speed, to guns, to armor, to aircraft that could fight in 3 dimensions instead of just 2. The Fiat CR-42 Falco continued to fly. It served in North Africa, in the Mediterranean, on home defense missions. It was built in greater numbers than any other Italian fighter, nearly 2,000 aircraft. It was the last biplane fighter in production, and it flew until the very end of the war. Some were even captured and flown by the Germans. In a way, it was a beautiful aircraft, the last of its kind, a machine that proved human beings could coax incredible agility and grace from wood and fabric and wire. Butte also proved that grace wasn't enough, that courage wasn't enough, that pride wasn't enough. When you send an open cockpit biplane against a modern fighter, you lose. That's not a question. not a debate. It's a fact written in the sky above. Kenton 1940. Salvadori lived. Many didn't. The Corpo Aereo Italiano flew. They fought. They died. But they never won a single major engagement over Britain. This is what happens when a leader puts pride ahead of reality. When a nation sends its pilots to fight with weapons that are obsolete before they arrive. When the answer to, "Should we do this?" is not military strategy, but the need to prove something to an ally, to the world, to yourself. Salvadori survived the war. He was a prisoner for a time, then released. He lived until us. 1991, 71 years old. He never flew a CR-42 again, but he carried the memory of that moment over the English Channel engine failing Spitfires on his tail. A biplane doing what a biplane can do, which is turn and turn and turn until somehow you slip away and live another day. The lesson of the Fiat CR-42 is not that the aircraft was bad. It's that sometimes, when you're sending your pilots to their deaths, they survive anyway. And that survival feels like victory, even when everyone knows it was only luck. So the question for you is this. Do you think the Italian High Command knew before they sent the Corpo Aereo Italiano to Belgium that the CR-42 was inadequate? Or did they simply not want to know? Hit like so YouTube knows you're thinking about that question, and I'll see it. Next time, we're going to talk about the other Italian fighter, the Corpo Aereo Italiano, sent to Britain, the Fiat G50 Freccia. It was supposed to be better. It was supposed to be the answer. And it failed too. Subscribe so you don't miss what happened when Italy sent its best to the Battle of Britain. Thanks for watching.